Welcome, everybody. Good morning to all. Welcome to our team who's here. Debbie, welcome. Great to have you as well. Welcome to our board meeting today. We want to excuse our chair, Stephanie Spiker, who's traveling and unavailable today. Wish her well and a safe return for our next meeting. And Crystal, I believe, Member Bassett is available online. Thanks, Crystal, for joining us.
Yes, Darren and Rod.
Oh, good. We've got AAG Darren Goff. We've got our USPE liaison, Rod Hall, joining us remotely. Thanks, folks. Great to have you on. We'll go ahead and get rolling with our meeting today. We don't have a lot of items on the agenda today. We expect to finish by noon, which is a record. But that's great. Looking forward to getting everything done today. Let's go ahead and start with a Pledge of Allegiance. Pulsifer, can you lead us in that?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, and then Member Marshall, you've got a board member thought for us today. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so at this time of year, it gets pretty crazy for charter directors, getting preparing for kind of the end of the school year, particularly with graduation. So we have high school. And this will be our 14th year as a school for the high school. The other schools have been around a little bit longer, but we're preparing for our speeches, our commencement speeches. And one of the things I was thinking about was the influence that we have on students throughout this state and our community, and had a unique experience. I was at a Dodgers Padres baseball game, and we were sitting in the stands and chatting to this guy next to me. Had a North Dakota State baseball hat on, so I was asking him about his experience and what brought him out to the game. And as we were chatting, we were talking about our students and our school, and it just somehow the conversation shifted, and we were talking about this person that had been kind of selected to be the lead news anchor for this city in North Dakota, at Bismarck, I believe. And as we were chatting, I don't know how the conversation got there, but anyway, he just mentioned his name, this student of ours, our previous student. Super smart kid, was part of the IB program. And as we were talking, I reached out to the family and I was like, hey, you're never going to believe this. I ran into this family that knew your son, obviously, as the lead anchor for Bismarck, North Dakota news agency. And so I reflected on that, and all of the students I've been able to interact with, we truly do influence students and the trajectory of their life forever. And we talk a lot about in our school the importance of a living legacy, and that each one of these students, their small 4-year contribution to Providence Hall ends up being hopefully a lifelong contribution to the community, to their families, and in this case, Bismarck, North Dakota. This work matters. And what we're doing for our communities matter, and the influence we have on these students, it really changes people's lives. And it just helped me reflect on why we do what we do. And it's for students. It's for this opportunity to rub shoulders with some guy at a baseball game and recognize that there's these students that go on and contribute. And I just love what we do, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this community here, part of the State Charter School Board, to help shape and influence in many different ways. As charter schools are a very unique niche where we can allow parents and families to select schools that meet their unique needs. And so that's the thought that I had.
Excellent. Thanks, Nate. That's great thought. Great to center our attention on why we're really. So thank you very much for that. Do we have any public comment today?
Usually I'm Jerry as like a, she's,
Oh, thanks for checking in.
no.
Okay. Seeing no public comment, we'll move on from that. Let's go to the consent calendar. Does anyone have anything in the consent calendar they want to discuss before we have a motion and vote? Anyone see anything out of line or that you have any concern about on the consent calendar? Give you a sec just to consider that. I'm sorry, you gotta use your phone for this. today.
No, it's good. I looked at it earlier, so I'm good on that.
Good. Okay, do I have a motion on the consent calendar then?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Great. Thank you, Member Marshall, the motion, do we have a consent? Or I'm sorry, a second?
I'll second it.
Great, Member Pulsper seconds, all in favor say yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. I didn't hear Crystal.
Yes.
That's it, excellent, thank you so much. Thanks again for joining us remotely. Okay, that passes unanimously. Let's move on then to the next item on the agenda, which is our executive director report. Director Hutchins, please go ahead.
All right, thank you. We'll pull up the slides and let's go to the next slide, give you an idea of a few things that I thought would be of interest to cover. We went to. Now we can go to the third slide. Show real quick. Third slide, Bold by Choice Summit. So member Basinger and I both went to the Bold by Choice Summit a couple weeks ago, and I thought it would be nice to share some of my main takeaways, things that I learned that were interesting at the summit. And so I just have a few comments about some of the different breakouts that I went to. And then member Basinger may have some other ideas that he wants to share also. But first, he and I actually were both invited to kind of a high level roundtable discussion that took place just before the summit started. And there were charter leaders in different roles from all over the state. And the main question was, how can we support each other nationally, which was an interesting perspective for me, because I think so Utah focused, and then to be in a group like that, to hear have the discussion focus on supporting each other nationally. And some of the main ideas I took away was the first thought of create systems of excellence, not a program of excellence. And I think we'll see that it's made me think about our systems a little more deeply, and how that can help us be more effective. We also talked about charter leaders want stability and consistency. And we talked about the Mississippi Miracle and the Southern Surge, and there were charter leaders from those areas. And their takeaway for us is it has taken time and it's not an overnight improvement. And so even though that's kind of come up in the news and people are really excited and interested in seeing the academic improvements in those areas, it wasn't a quick fix, it wasn't a silver bullet, it's consistently doing the right things. So I thought that was interesting. They also said, talked about giving choice in a performance framework, trading more accountability for more autonomy. And I see that in our accountability framework that we're implementing right now, where we do have different pathways in the academic part of that. So I thought those were some interesting takeaways from that one. The next one was called Break the Playbook, More Effective Promotion of Charter Schools. And was this basically getting the word out more effectively about charter schools and sharing the positive message. And this presenter was from California and had listed many things that were kind of the old way of doing messaging. And his new playbook said this, presented what he's been doing, that now, with where the charter movement is currently, what he's finding, successful. And, his advice is define yourself first, it's something we've been talking about. Message, why do we need charter schools and how they are doing? And then questions to answer and to share. Are to answer to ourselves and then to share publicly. Are they quality? Are they good for kids? And are they good for public education? I think those are all really good questions to ask ourselves as we're looking at our charter schools. And this was actually probably my favorite breakout. It was, I look and see what do I have the most notes from, and it was definitely this one. And I've connected Director Fillmore to the person who presented, because I think he could be very helpful in what Director Fillmore is now doing for the State Charter School Board. So we will see more of that to come. On the next slide, there's a couple
Director
more.
Hutchings, I'm sorry, can I just, I hate to interrupt, but can you just tell us a little bit more about who attended this summit? I mean, who is this for? Who are the participants?
So it basically charter leaders from across the country. There were authorizers, there were board members, there were even teachers. The teachers were more local to the area, but it was a pretty diverse group of roles across the country in charters, in the charter movement.
And I'll just add there too, I one of the things I thought that was good, as you're pointing to, Director Hutchings, is they also, I think though, there were professionals in the industry there too. And sometimes you go to these conferences and you feel like you get 8 professionals in a room and 2 of the, I think this was a really good mix. So it was mostly, I would say, authorizers and those, but I liked how they did with intention invite some people from the finance community and some people from the building and facility community. And so that, and I think that the idea was trying to get around the table and, have different vantage points to talk about kind of the, how do you mix things like accountability and innovation and yet have kind of these different perspectives that were involved. So I thought that's one thing that really was helpful for me as I attended the different sessions and just talked to folks generally.
Absolutely. And one thing Member Basin and I talked about after the conference was, and during, I think too, is to that point about the diversity of the people who were there and the different backgrounds that they had. Was I've never been to a conference or summit or something like this where the networking was so effective. And they were really good at pulling specific people together and getting them to talk and know each other. Those who planned this summit knew very well who was in attendance and who needed to get to know each other. And they constantly throughout the time together were pulling people together and saying that came to us, you need to meet this person here, let's put you together, you need to meet these people, let's get you together. I haven't seen that at a conference before, so intentionally.
Great.
That was very helpful. Okay, a few more. The next one, how mission aligned accountability supports schools and students. And this was a very small table talk about responsive goals. And the idea behind the responsive goals really goes to with our accountability framework in the academic part, how we have the different pathways. And, is particularly in the second pathway where we do give charters an opportunity to add a couple of their own goals that are unique to their mission. And that's really what these responsive goals are. And they said their advice was ask what is your unique value add and know who you are as we work with charters to identify if they choose the second pathway to help them select goals that really help support their mission. So next, authorizing for possibility. This was really kind of a fun one, allowing for innovation. And I definitely think this is a strength of this board, is looking for and being excited about innovation, being open to innovation. It's part of our statutory mandate to be looking for innovative ways to have excellence in academics. And I really think that this board embraces it, but I think particularly so part of that, and it's something I'm really interested into. It was a fun breakout. And their advice was define what is acceptable and unacceptable risk. And if we confuse preferences for conditions, we unintentionally limit what's possible. And throughout this session, we kind of played with the idea of, in Colorado, they have a new school there. This was their first year. That is about, part of their model is 85% is outside. So they kind of walked us through their decision-making process in authorizing this school. And their advice is to, instead of saying, well, you can't offer, appropriate accommodations in that environment, you ask, how can you offer appropriate accommodations? Or by saying, you can't keep kids safe with all the safety requirements in this environment, asking the school, how can you do that, keep the kids safe with the safety requirements in the state? And, to really be a mechanism for helping them expand on their innovation instead of shutting it down. So I thought it was kind of an interesting thought that they walked us through with that charter school. And the last one I have to share, freedom within a framework, governance clarity across the charter ecosystem. This was focusing on having the authorizer, school board and school leaders working together. And their advice is making sure that everyone understands the outcomes and to be on the same page regarding what matters. And so having clarity in purpose, having clarity in communication between the authorizer, the board, and the leader about what's important at their school. So those were great takeaways for me and things that I'm thinking about and finding ways to apply in the work I'm doing now. So, Member Basinger, did you have any other thoughts you wanted to add?
No, and that was a great summary. I really, for me, this conference really, I think my highlights were just the chance to mingle. I'll say network, but that feels a little bit impersonal. But just the chance to do folks. Jim Gunner and Mary Bradley. Jim's a master social room worker, right? He's as good as I've ever seen, and he'll talk with you and find out what's going on, and then he'll inevitably say, "Hey, have you met the folks from Montana?" And he'll walk you over there, and so it was really nice. I think that just kind of sets the tone of the conference. But it's nice to kind of see the folks from New Mexico again, who are kind of a year ahead of us in their framework kind of ideology. So it's kind of nice to be able to talk with them and see where they are and learn from them a little bit, so I think just the connections. The other thing I would just probably comment is, I think these conferences have been useful for me and I think for our organization, in that to do our best job here, it is helpful to have an eye be able to look outward, right? I appreciate Director Fillmore, going to Washington, DC. I think that outward looking eye is going to be very helpful to us, and this conference and others that are similar to it really kind of help you see what's going around the country. Because I think best practices are, we usually try to borrow a little bit, or sometimes even learn, like, whoa, I don't want to touch what's going on there.
Yeah.
Right. But that's helpful. And it isn't all applicable to Utah, but there are definitely themes and rhymes that I think we go there, we get a little wider vision, and we can bring it back here and hopefully execute a little better with that. So I think these things are important. I'm a fan of the National Charter Institute and hope we can find a way to, continue to partner with them in the future, because I think their vision, I was going to say but this is my last thing. The other takeaway is that this organization in particular is really about innovation. They really look towards innovation and almost to the point where, like, how can we get out of regulation and get into the innovation? And that's a wrestling match, and it's a fair wrestling match, and there is a time for regulation. But I like they particularly look towards innovation, and so I think that's an important part of what we need to have in. So those are my few comments about the conference, and I'll just say it was great to be with Director Hutchings. Just to see her and her care factor And the diligence you can see by the notes she has. I mean, we've really just got somebody that is very mindful of, using her time and benefiting all of us. So that was a real pleasure just to kind of have some time there too. So those are my takeaways.
Great. Thank you.
Hey, next, I wanted to spend just a couple minutes talking about one of our goals on the next slide. As far as building relationships, and really over the last few weeks, a lot of my focus in building relationships has been with USVE in introducing myself and kind of catching some of the challenges that we're facing with them and talking to them about that. And I will say, going into this role, I had thought through, open communication and transparency. We talked about that quite a bit and how important that is. And that continues to be very important. I also feel like I've discovered that there's a deeper layer of things that we can do to have a really solid working relationship with USVE. And this is around making sure that we have clear systems and timelines that we're coordinating with USVE. I think we have some, great work that we do here. USVE has their work, and I think there's definitely room where we need to reach out and coordinate some of those efforts. Because there's can develop some friction when we're not coordinating those efforts, particularly in the areas of financials and just some of our different procedures with our, for example, our new charter schools and expansions and satellites, also with our waivers and transfers of operation and control. Those are areas where over the next several weeks, I'll be working with them to make sure that our processes line up with what their needs are and what their timeline requirements are. I also, another area, and this kind of goes along with the same thing with idea of clear systems and timelines, and that's just coordination of efforts with USVE, working together with them with these systems and timelines, but also being very clear with them about what is working and what is not. And making sure that we celebrate the things that we feel really good about in working together, and being able to be open and communicate very transparently about the things that are not working, and work together with them to make sure that we are improving those efforts. I had a really I would say really productive meeting yesterday with the state superintendent, a couple of deputy superintendents, Chair Hymas and another USVE board member, where we spoke for about an hour and a half about some of those items. What are the pain points and what are some ideas that we can start working on to improve those areas so that we have a strong partnership with USVE. Because in the end, we're public education, and we should be working together to make sure that our schools are successful and our students are being served. And so I was impressed by the attitudes and the perspectives that were shared in that meeting. And it gives us some things that we can really do to improve our relationships and collaborate better. So that's something I will be very much focusing on over the next few weeks. It seems a good summer project for me, and specifically in some of the procedures that we need to collaborate better on. So I'm excited for that. It's so great when you can identify things that will improve our working relationship, and that is so important that we have that strong working relationship with USVE.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
I'll be reporting back more about that in the future, so.
Yeah, that's great. Director Hutchings, I thank you. I mean, this has been your charge. This is something that we've identified as a board as being top priority. Thank you for taking the bull by the horns and really focusing in on this effort. This is excellent. We look forward to future additional.
Yeah, and I love your approach, of how you're opening up, talking, what can we do, but I love your approach.
We'll continue on with that for sure, and I'll definitely report back our progress. Last thing, I just wanted to make sure that we're celebrating our charter school successes. So I have a couple of slides to do that and to call out and celebrate some of the great things that are going on with our charter schools. First, we have Walden School of Liberal Arts was given an attendance recognition by USBE for their positive attendance program. Roots Charter School was awarded an Assist for Good grant. Teresa Hislop from Ogden Prep won the Governor's Medal for Science and Technology. New Ames, it was one of 12 high schools in Utah recognized in high achievement in preparing multi-language learners in college level courses. American Leadership Academy's Marjorie Morley received the Gail Miller Community Service Award that celebrates world-changing power of community service. Included with that award was a $2,000 scholarship. And then of the Sterling Scholars, Da Vinci Academy's Catherine Downs was the English runner-up. And Beehive Academy's Emma Lewis was first place for visual arts. So some really great things going on there. And next, we also, of course, need to celebrate Utah's top 10 high schools from US News and World Report. The best high schools are here. We have 6 of the 10 are charter schools. Beehive Science and Technology, which has been top of the list for how many years? 5 years? Yeah. Incredible. Carl G. Mazer, Preparatory Academy and Tech Collegiate Academy, Itinerus Early College High School, Academy for Ames, Math, Engineering and Science, and Northern Utah Academy for Math, Engineering and Science. So really great shout out and representation for our charter schools to be on this list. So we're very excited about that. I want to honor their hard work. And then I wanted to take a minute too on the next slide. I have had the opportunity, it's I think in talking to staff, it's our favorite part of our work here is visiting schools. And so I've had the opportunity to visit 3 schools over the last month. And I just wanted to shout out the strengths that I observed while I was at each school. And first is Itinerus. They're one of our top 10 schools in this high schools in the state. And one thing we talked about with them that was so impressive, not only do they make this top 10 list, but when you look at their demographics, they're quite diverse for their area. And so one thing they're very proud of, and they should be, is that a lot of times these schools are accused of cherry picking or just taking the cream of the crop. But it is a very diverse student body that they are giving the opportunity for academic success and an early college opportunity. And so definitely should be proud of that. They should be, and we should be proud of them for doing that.
Yeah, did their student body come mostly from an
Yes.
area around them,
Mhm.
or
It's fairly representative of their area.
is it? Okay, cool.
For sure. Next, Maria Montessori Academy was a fun visit, particularly just the passion and the mission-driven leadership that they represented in our meeting with them and the tour that they gave us. Their board chair, I mean, it was just passion all over the place, so involved, so excited about the mission of their school and making sure they had high fidelity to that mission. And watching how the board chair and the director worked together to do that was very impressive. I also saw for the first time how you could help elementary level, early elementary students be self-driven in their learning. It was, for me, it was mind-blowing to see the strategies that they used to do that. That really the passion that their leadership team has was pretty notable. And then Spectrum Academy had the chance to go tour Spectrum down in Pleasant Grove. And we all know, the great job that Spectrum Academy does in meeting students with high needs. And again, going back, their mission-driven focus, their passion, their love and care for students who have high needs is tangible. And you can see it in every part of their school. And it's something, we hear about, but to go and see it is definitely memorable. And so I just wanted to, those were my takeaways from those visits, and it was exciting to see in action the great work that we hear about. Last thing, just want to highlight things that are coming up. USBE did send 3 names.
Did they send them? USB,
They did vote, and
but did they actually call and, because I talked to Rich Knight yesterday evening and he hadn't seen it.
I will follow up.
Thank you.
Okay, it's in their public meeting.
Okay.
so-
Tell him to make the phone call, because he hadn't received them yet, and that was in the early, like 5 o'clock last night.
Okay, yeah.
The
I-
vote has at least happened for
Yes.
USB.
Yeah, the vote happened
Great.
from USBE, and
Good.
Okay.
they nominated these 3 individuals that will go to the
Yeah,
governor.
tell him to make the phone call.
Okay, I will follow up with that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And then lastly, just, I mean, remember Marshall talked about it. It's just that exciting time of year where school's wrapping up, the sun is shining, celebrations are being had, and in particular graduations are going on. And I know many of us, board members and SCSB staff are signed up to go to many graduations over the next couple of weeks, and it's just very exciting. It's the best time of year. So to go and celebrate with the schools, the student successes, and what that means to the individual lives of so many students across the state of Utah. So I just want to say thank you for signing up and being a part of that, representing the State Charter School Board in recognizing their efforts. And most of us have been to these graduations, and I'm sure are just looking forward to it because it's such a joy. And so I'm excited for the next couple of weeks, and I know you are too. It's my report. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Hutchins. That's what we're doing. It's a wonderful report. Does anyone have any questions before we move on?
I just have one or comment quick. Back to the best high schools list. It's always fun to see that. I would just be curious to learn what is the criteria for that, and what is the, we don't need to take a deep dive, but I'm just kind of intellectually curious as to what goes into that reporting and that rubric or metrics, and what about those schools kind of has kept them on that list, because I think it's great they do it. And I think particularly our charter high schools have different criteria. The criteria that the US and World News Report probably aligns well with those schools, but I think there's some other schools doing very meaningful things where the criteria probably doesn't cross into that. And so I just like to understand it. It's always sensitive to picking best. Because just kind of like charter schools, right? Best depends on the student's needs. But I would be curious to understand that, is maybe just a follow up if it doesn't take,
Yeah, in
mountains of
fact, I'm
effort.
working really quick, and
Yeah.
maybe I can share a break. I believe the article actually shared at least
Does it?
at some level the criteria.
Yeah,
College readiness is 30%. State, and that includes AP exams or the IB exam.
great.
Next 20% is state assessment proficiency, so the state test scores. 20% is state assessment performance. Appears to be different from proficiency.
Or if that be growth in our
Probably
context,
so.
maybe.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
formula.
Yeah.
And then underserved student performance, 10%. College curriculum breadth, 10%, and graduation rate, 10%.
Okay.
That's what I show.
Very helpful.
US News,
Thank you.
so.
Question.
But yeah,
Those are
we
great
continue
criteria.
to see these same
Yeah.
consistently high performing charter high schools.
Well, and just as you gave a shout out to Itinerants for their diverse student population, Beehive,
Beehive is.
Yeah.
they do not cherry pick.
Right.
I think I remember it's 26 languages, 26 languages are spoken by students at their school.
It's part of their model.
Yeah,
too.
they embrace it. Yeah, it's a credit to Hanifi and their board. Well, thank you. That was helpful to hear. Those are good metrics.
Yeah, I agree. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Great, excellent. Let's move on. Amy Pace, Amy, I think you're next on the agenda. We look forward to hearing from you.
Remember just a second. All right, thank you and good morning. Today I'm going to walk you through the State Charter School Board's professional learning opportunities. These support the initiatives for the charter schools across Utah. These programs are designed to strengthen leadership capacity, improve operational effectiveness, support innovation, and provide meaningful network and mentorship opportunities. Throughout the presentation, I'll highlight the purpose of each program, who it serves, and the impact it is intended to have on the school level. The next slide is just an overview of the agenda or of the programs that we're going to review, but let's move on to the first program. So one of our most highly successful leadership initiatives is the WestEd School to School Mentoring Program. This program was created to build leadership capacity and improve educational outcomes by pairing high-performing charter school leaders with leaders who would benefit from individualized coaching and mentorship. We call this a good to great model. The program follows a cohort model facilitated by WestEd consultants Robin Chait and Kelly Winbring. Schools have reported collaborative learning by all participants and strengthening of their charter model. The program is funded at approximately $100,000 annually for 3 years, and it is managed by Brendan McGinn and Marie Stephenson. All right, the next is the WestEd Launchpad program. This program supports school leadership through a selective annual cohort process. Leaders apply and are interviewed by the LeverageDad team, and final selections are supported by staff at the SCSB. There is no cost for participation in this program by the leaders or the schools. The program has expanded over time, beginning with 4 leaders in the first cohort, and this second cohort had 5 leaders, and the next cohort that was just selected this last week will have 4 leaders again. An important component of this initiative is the opportunity for school leaders to travel to one national convening in Atlanta. The SCSB covers the travel and housing for that trip. One staff member, usually myself, travels with the school leaders as well, and I manage this program. All right, the next program that we're going to talk about is the Diverse Charter Schools Coalition. This was the first year that we participated in the Diverse Charter Schools Coalition Explorers program. The SCSB invested approximately $8,000 each for 2 leaders to attend this program. The program includes national level training and collaborative opportunities focused on leader growth and intentional leadership practices. I was not able to attend the national convening with the program this year, but that was the intention. This is managed by myself and Marie Stephenson. The next program we're going to talk about is the Charter School Directors Meetings. These are part of the SCSB's ongoing professional learning and administrative support efforts. They are designed to foster collaboration among charter school leaders while also providing targeted guidance and updates. For the 2025-2026 school year, the meetings were focused on resources for schools, collaborative problem solving, and administrative best practices. These meetings are organized and managed by Betty Jimenez. The next is the Charter School Business Administrators meetings. These are monthly meetings that provide financial and operational support for charter school business administrators. The meetings are held from August through May and focus on high-level financial topics such as risk management, internal controls, indirect cost rates, and reporting. Presenters typically are staff from the SCSB as well as our colleagues at the USBE. These meetings are organized and managed by Lisa Cooper-Locke. The next is the Innovation Grant Support Cohort. This cohort was established to support schools that receive the innovation grants. Through contracted services, schools receive training, coaching, and implementation support to maximize the effectiveness of their innovation projects. Shannon Olson and Terry Matson from Olson Educational Services have facilitated these learning opportunities and participated in the planning. This initiative was funded at approximately $20,000 per year over 3 years. We have 1 year remaining in this current contract. The plan for next year is to have an innovation showcase where we are going to highlight the projects and other innovations that are happening in our charter schools. I manage this program.
And Amy, I'm sorry, before you move on,
Yes.
that's something that's worth renewing. Is that going well? You say there's 1 year left?
There's 1 year left. It'll kind of depend on what we intend to do as far as how we manage innovation. It's been I'll call it moderately effective program. I think it's hard for school leaders to have one more thing to attend. And that's why we've chosen to go to the 1-day seminar for next year to kind of use their time more wisely. But the meetings and the facilitation by those contractors has been phenomenal. They've done a really good job at helping schools think about how to take the money that they had, because that was one-time funding, and continue their project on for years to come. And not just relying on the 1 year of funding. So it's been great, and it's really interesting to see the innovation that the different schools chose. We've had everything from like reading support programs to after school mentoring to use of AI. One school chose to have parents meet with a school leader or a staff member in the summer. They visited every single family. So it's all been really things that have been really impactful depending on the needs of the community. And I love that about the program. They got to choose what they needed. I didn't choose. You didn't choose. They got to choose.
Excellent,
So it's been fun.
excellent.
When we have the day planned, I'll be sure to invite everybody.
And the partnership with the organization, the innovation organization.
Olson Education.
Are they just to help facilitate conversation and just
Mhm.
development of their ideas, or?
And the planning and the delivery of the trainings.
Oh, okay.
They've met one-on-one with the schools. There's been a lot of individual coaching time available to the schools to work through the reporting process and through just developing their long-term plan.
Good.
All right, moving along. The next one is the C Forum. This was the first year that the SCSB participated in the C Forum network. This is a group of curriculum directors, educational technology leaders, and other educational professionals from across the state. These meetings are hosted by UAN along with a partnering organization that rotates each month. We held the meeting in January. I coordinated the event and I've continued to attend the meetings. Stacy and Murray were also presenters that day.
Enter Spiker.
Oh, yes, and Spiker. How did I forget? She's not here for me to remember. Yes. All right, moving along. We will continue with that again next year, as long as they continue to hold the meetings. The next is the pre-operational schools mentoring and training program. This initiative supports schools preparing to open. Through contracted services with UAPCS, participating schools receive monthly mentoring and training on the operational and academic topics necessary for a successful school launch. The contract is funded at approximately $15,000 annually over a 3-year period. This program is managed by Marie Stephenson and Betty Jimenez. This initiative helps ensure that new charter schools enter operation with strong systems, leadership preparation, and compliance understanding already in place. All right, the next one is the School Safety Center Training and Conference. The School Safety Center provides professional learning and technical assistance focused on prevention, preparedness, and recovery. Utah law requires that we have a charter liaison on the school safety team. In addition to the training opportunities provided by the school safety system, the SCSB also provides support to charter schools as they navigate the implementing changing school safety legislation. Marie Stephenson was previously the charter liaison, and I am now serving in that role. All right, the next is the National Association of Charter Schools Authorizers Conference. I know some of you were able to attend this past year. Our organization was represented in 2 of the sessions. We presented with WestEd in the peer-to-peer mentoring program. Marie was part of that presentation, along with a school leader and the partners from WestEd. The second was a panel that was put together by Leveraged Ed on how partnerships can facilitate growth of school leaders I participated in that panel, and we look forward to continuing these kind of presentations in the future. Our next topic is the Board Financial Oversight and School Finances 101 course. This training focuses on helping governing boards better understand their role and the importance of financial oversight and long-term sustainability. The presentation emphasized the board's responsibility to approve and monitor budgets, ensure audit compliance and requirements are met, assess financial health, and maintain strong internal controls while avoiding day-to-day operational management. Participants are also introduced to key financial performance indicators used by the SESB, which include things like unrestricted days cash on hand and debt service coverage ratios. This program is provided in collaboration with Smriti DeCall and Lisa Cooper Buck. And they travel to schools and to boards and present this training. All right, the next, we're gonna go.
Can I ask on that? Just because this is kind of in my world and.
You can ask them, not me. I don't know about this one.
Sweetie, is it Sweetie? Do you deliver that one-on-one with schools then?
Yes, and we tailored part of it to school specifically.
And how of the portfolio of schools we have, how do you decide who to go to? Because that's a big lift. Do you pick and choose? Does everybody get that? Is there a certain?
So last year we were actually, we were approached, by, school representative, and then, and that's when we presented, but I know like, there might be a few more happening, as we
Okay.
go along, but last year, was the first time we did it.
I'm a huge fan of this. So I think it's great, and I think it's great we can, as an organization, do this. So you're saying, Smriti, that if a school asked about this, then you two went and trained.
Yes.
Okay, and how many did you, Brendan?
I'll just add that particular schools being referenced. That came about from the comprehensive review process.
Okay,
And
cool.
therefore led to the financial changes.
I just love to throw a little gasoline on this, like as far as just getting that out there, and I'm not sure how to do it. I don't know if it needs to turn into a webinar that can be viewed, but man, that one-on-one is so helpful in person. So I don't probably think that you two can take on this and everything you're doing, but man, I would love to. All of these trainings are great, but that's just such a fundamental, like if you can avoid the big problems, and if you can train boards and learn finances 101, you just give yourself so much help in avoiding the big landmines. And so whatever we can do to maybe amplify that effort, I think that's great.
Yeah, great comment.
All right, we have just a couple more. The next slide is about the Lunch and Learn series. In 2024, we organized the Lunch and Learn series to target professional development and opportunities on topics. 2024, we decided to focus on the Utah Fits All Scholarship Program and how schools can offer courses that fit within the program guidelines. This was a well-attended event. In 2025, the conversation had shifted a little bit, and we shifted towards creative thinking and strategic planning for new buildings and construction projects. We did not hold a Lunch and Learn in 2026. And I also want to add that because state organizations are unable to provide food directly from meetings, each of these events included an outside sponsorship for the lunch portion, which we greatly appreciate those. I'm looking forward to doing more of these in the future. All right, our next one that I want to talk about is the Charter School Conference sponsorships. The SESB supports professional learning through sponsorships of major charter school conferences and events in the state. These provide training for school leaders and educators on topics that include everything from school management to curriculum, technology changes, and instructional practices. Current sponsorships include the UAPCS Winter Administrators Conference, the UAPCS Summer Conference, and the UCN Annual Symposium. Annual sponsorships range from about $225,000 to $300,000 for all events yearly. And these investments help charter school staff across the state have access to high quality professional learning opportunities. We appreciate the collaboration that we have with these organizations. The last one that I want to talk about is a contract that we are working on. This is called the General School Educational Consulting and Governance Support Program. We are currently seeking a partner vendor to provide broad charter school consulting services, including individualized mentoring, strategic leadership training, educational consulting, and governance support for leadership teams and governing boards. That, like I said, the contract has not yet been awarded, but the process is definitely rolling along. This is projected at approximately $500,000 over 5 years, and this will be managed by Director Hutchings. This is an effort and it reflects our continuous improvement to strengthen governance and leadership effectiveness, and which will lead to long-term school success. The last thing I
Can I
just
ask
want
a
to
question
say.
on this one? So for this program, is the vision that schools will be kind of pre-identified, or is it an application process to select who could participate in this?
We honestly don't have an answer for that.
So I'll say the interesting thing about this is it offers a variety of trainings and supports. And so depending on what it is, there will be some that we encourage and invite specifically for specific reasons. There are others like more general convenings that all will be invited to participate.
So there'd be almost like an à la carte option to select pieces that
Yes.
that their needs better, okay?
Yeah, and I will add that we're hoping to have that contract in place before the beginning of next school year. The last thing I want to mention is that our professional learning series and our offerings are designed to provide meaningful support across every stage of charter school development. From pre-operational planning to leadership coaching, financial oversight, innovation support, and governance development. And I also want to mention that many of these programs are supported heavily with help from Amber Hellstrom with her IT services, by Andrea with her scheduling of buildings and organizing meetings, and then by everyone on the staff. None of these could go down the way and be as successful as they are without help from everybody, from managing the building to managing, helping checking in, supporting the programs. It's definitely a team effort that while one person's name might be the person in charge, it takes the whole team to make sure that these go off well. Now, if you have any other questions, I feel like I did the thing that I always tell my teachers not to do, and that's to sit and talk. So,
Board questions, comments?
Thought it was extremely helpful for us to know about these and hear about these. And that leads me to another, and so much good, but that leads me to, the second question is, do charter schools know, how do we get information out? Do they know about these? Are they, and my other question that goes along with that is there a way that we can check the pulse of our charter schools, to say what things are the most helpful to you? And what things could we do that maybe we're not doing that are along these lines that would be more helpful? So we get that communication so that they understand, that they may not know that these are all available. I don't know, if you did or whatever.
There's a lot of great things there. You guys do a lot of great work. And I look at the list and there are some that I don't know that I was directly aware of, but
Mhm.
just grateful that there are those availabilities.
Mhm.
Kind of to the points you talked about in your presentation and getting a feel for the pulse. I would also add that, is there an opportunity to almost a return and report on
Mhm.
kind of the effectiveness of these programs and how are they contributing to to the greater collective
Mhm.
gain for charters? Because there a lot of those are things that if I were to pick some things to help even myself as a director, there are a lot of things there that would be super beneficial.
Yeah.
And your point's valid. I mean, if everybody could, participate in it, our staff would,
Couldn't do it.
yeah, it'd be a pretty heavy lift. But those would be similar questions: is how do we know? How do we participate? What's the selective process? And
Mhm.
how do we measure our
And yeah,
performance in
Yeah.
regards to efficacy, I guess, of those programs.
Yeah, measuring the effectiveness and also the meeting of needs, you know. I thank you. It was fantastic to hear these things, but yeah, moving forward with them.
And I'm sure you sent it out and we get a lot of emails.
I send them out.
Part of it is, you know.
I know the
looking,
school directors
so-
are very, very busy,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
getting around to filling out the application or submitting for the grant or and I know that directors wear a million hats, and I know that that's an area that I don't know how to fix that part.
Mhm.
We can send out all the opportunities in the world, but allowing people to have more time to participate is really tricky.
Mhm.
And I think, you know, my philosophy has always been, you gotta send it out multiple times in multiple, you know, ways. To get their attention, and I think, we also have an opportunity when we're visiting schools.
Yes. Yes.
To make specific
Mhm.
invitations.
Mhm.
Yes,
Make sure they're aware that those supports are out there for them.
Mhm.
And specifically invite them to specific trainings that we see. could-
Brandon does a great job with that in his comp review visits. So schools that he is speaking with. If whether I'm there or any of the other team is there to attend, he always brings up, have you thought about this program? We have this training. There's these things that are going on. So I shout out to Brendan for sure. He's very good to pass along information.
And I agree, I think looking at effectiveness specifically.
Yeah.
Will be a good thing to put together. I
Mhm.
know different programs there, they do surveys and there is some follow-up, but to put that together to present, I think would be definitely helpful for all of us. And I will say with the Charter Association Conference coming up in June, our breakout for the board and the board and the staff are putting on, the purpose of that breakout is one, to introduce ourselves, who we are and what we do.
Mhm.
But the other part of that time will be spent asking, what do you participate in that we offer that is helpful to you?
Good.
And
Good.
what more do you need? What
love
areas
it.
do you need help in? So we do have that planned in order to have some of those discussions with charter leaders at that conference.
Good, I love it, and I do appreciate knowing about it myself, because in interactions over the last year, I've been. Statements have been made and questions have been asked, and I didn't know, you know, so it's helpful that we can then respond in a more appropriate way, so.
I'll be sure to let you guys know.
I kind of wonder for next year if we could put together, you know, just a one pager of the different opportunities that we can have on hand. Take to the comprehensive reviews and make sure they're aware and even be able to.
I love that,
make
yeah.
specific
I like that.
recommendations. And as we're interacting with different schools in different ways
Mhm.
throughout the year, to have that handy. To
Mhm.
say, here, have you heard about these trainings? Let me recommend some for you.
Mhm.
The other thing that I will add is that the strengthening of our charter community as a whole has led to a lot of word of mouth.
Yeah.
People will say, hey, I heard about, or so-and-so told me about this leveraged ed program, or I heard that this school was in the peer-to-peer mentoring program. How do I get involved? So I think the efforts that we're laying down now are building and growing so that we'll have just more and more people that want to participate year after year. All right, thank
Excellent.
you.
Amy, thank you. I was smiling during that. Because you were assigned to squeeze into 15 minutes. A summation of what, thousands of hours collectively of you and the rest of the team and all the training that goes on. So thank you. That was excellent. I'd love to have you email that out.
I thought it was gonna be fast. I'll make sure that we.
I don't think I've seen that.
I didn't see it either.
So if you could circulate that, that would be super helpful. And I guess just to recap, always consider self-improvement anyway to make all of these trainings more effective. If there's anything that you think needs to be scrapped at some point and you need to move on to something else, man, by all means, let's talk about it. But thanks for what you're doing. Excellent job. Okay, now I think we've got Brendan, Smriti, and Lisa. I think you have something to share with us. Great. Come on over.
Yes, so we'll be doing a one-year update on the SCSB accountability framework. And I'll specifically be talking about the academic framework and what we've seen in that first year. It's okay. A little bit missing in the slide, and that's okay, because I think the most important part's there. So just as a quick reminder, I think it's important, since it's been a while since I've presented to the board, to review, give an overview of the academic framework. And just remembering that the purpose of the academic framework is to evaluate schools for their strengths and weaknesses, to identify perhaps areas of support, and also things that we could share with the portfolio wide, and then also to communicate with our stakeholders the performance of our schools. And then as we were going through this process, I just wanted to make a note, this could be self-serving, but that this academic framework can be a large endeavor. And so one of the main things that we were focused on was the capacity of staff and the efficiency of the process itself. So just as a reminder of that. And so what we came up with were these 3 pathways that schools can participate in. The first way, pathway number 1, is based on USBE's percentile rank. Pathway 2 adds a mission-specific educational bonus. So if a school has a specific thing that's related to their mission that we've acknowledged is important for their academic performance. And then the third, which should be rare, would be that USBE's assessments and percentile ranking doesn't work for that school to shoulder the work that they're doing. And so there can be some alternative assessments that we can use to measure their performance academically. So with that, just as a quick note on the next slide, hopefully this is visible. Yeah, okay, good. So this is just a reminder, because sometimes when we talk about percentile rankings, we don't know what's underneath that. So just as a review, this is the USBE's academic framework, the things that they are measuring, and then the weights that they're giving to those things. And just as a note, that any type of academic framework across all the authorizers in the country, they're always going to have assumptions in what they measure and how much they value that particular measurement. So when we looked at USBE's work and we noticed that over 50% of their measurement and value is growth, we thought that also aligned with the SCSB's values, and therefore we thought that this was something worth adopting. Also, just as a reminder, that USBE has an incredible data and statistics team behind this, and it gives our data a little bit of validity and strength to know that they've gone through an extensive process to produce these percentile rankings. So just as some background.
Because the data that you pull is based on what their team is generating.
Exactly. And there are many, many, many statistical steps in that process to come up with that data. So then for year 1 implementation, we decided that all schools will be in pathway number 1 for data collection. So again, this is going to be based on the USBE's data. And then there's the criteria that above the 25th percentile is meeting our expectations. Between the 10th and 25th is a review for us. And then below the 10th percentile would be an active engagement, in which we would work with the schools to support them if necessary. And so for the first year, this is the results that we saw. So we had 70% of our schools were meeting expectations, 20% in the review, 7% would be in that active engagement, and then the number of schools next to that. And just as a note, that there was 5 new schools which are not included in the academic framework for their first year.
Brendan, when you say above the 25th percentile, 25th percentile of the scoring data, the proficiency, or what is it when it's 25th percentile of what specifically?
Yeah, so if Amber could go back a couple slides
to the pie chart.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So each one of these metrics has an associated point value. Each one, and then those point values are given a weight that's given to an overall achievement score for the school. And then those achievement schools are put into a percentile, ranking all the schools in Utah from the first to the 100th being the best school in the state, which is a charter school. And then all the way down to the bottom school in Utah.
Okay,
Does that clarify your question?
thank you, yes, and so you picked the 20, because the distribution, if you go back to your slide. The next slide that you were speaking on,
Mhm.
right there.
Yeah,
Like that just kind of to me naturally works out to be like, okay, 91, I'll say 91 that are kind of in the, I don't know if I want to say we don't have to worry about them, but you know. But 26 that have some sort of, you know, kind of supporter eyeballs, and then 9, I mean, that's a pretty good distribution. So was the 25th picked because of just an arbitrary, we're gonna pick something, or what went into that kind of being the line or
so, that's a tough question to answer because, you know, there is a little bit of arbitrary in that there's nothing distinct about a school at the 25th percentile versus the 27th or the 22nd. So in some ways it's arbitrary, but it is the bottom quartile of the schools. And so we thought that would be an easy way to say, okay, if a school's in the bottom quartile of Utah's public schools, let's take a second look at that school and make sure either that we can provide support, or, which we often find, is that the school is serving a population or they have a mission that, you know, they're dealing with some unique challenges. And for some schools that are in the 22nd or 23rd percentile, they're a fantastic school.
Mhm.
And that's what the review process is
Mhm.
about. So to answer your question of whether that 25th percentile is arbitrary, you know, could we go down to the 20th percentile? Sure, we could do that. Could it be the 30th? But we felt that the 25th was a reasonable statistically place to stop and say, okay, if they're below the 25th, let's take a look at them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And so just some high level insights. First and foremost is that, and I know I referenced this earlier, but I just want to make this point clear, is that the academic framework design allowed it to be efficient. For me to have gone through 140 some schools and each one having, you know, 8, 10, 15 metrics to evaluate and then go through the statistical process of doing so. That's a big lift with the comprehensive reviews. This way, this worked out really well and it gave us some great data, what we needed for that pathway number 1. And I also just want to give out a specific kudos to Amber for what she's developed on UCAP, because if you go to UCAP, the way she's designed it, you can see this very clearly in terms of the performance of the schools, who's been identified, their percentile rankings over the last 5+ years. And honestly, it's excellent. And I really appreciate her work. And it's a very clear view of the school's performance as it relates to pathway number 1. The second insight is that, and Member Biesinger, you already noticed this, and I appreciate that, is that the proportion of schools match what we thought would happen. A lot of times there is some sort of public view that charter schools don't perform as high or whatever it is. And actually, when you look at the percentile rankings, they perform just as normally as you would expect, with most schools meeting our expectations as that 25th percentile. And the ones that were in that bottom 10th percentile, it was a manageable number for us to probably provide support for. And then the last one is that many of the schools, since this was just pathway 1, many of those schools that were labeled for review or active engagement would actually benefit from pathway number 2 and 3 once that's implemented, to prevent them from being in those categories, because they either they serve a population or they do something very, very well that is highlighted in their mission, and therefore probably wouldn't put them in that active engagement or review category. And then the last slide here is what we would want to do in the next year. And I think these will be repeated through all 3 of our presentations. And that is that we need to develop a communication plan for the accountability implementation, specifically with pathways 2 and 3, what that's going to look like, as well as actions for schools in active engagement and review and what that looks like. We need to figure out pathway 2 and 3 guidelines, what we're going to accept for mission specific goals, and then what alternative assessments are acceptable to us, and we've already outlined those, but we need to make those official. And then the third is, what does the support protocols look like for schools in those review and active engagements? That's kind of a review of year one's implementation, and I would say that overall it's been really successful, and I think this is gonna work for our organization and the schools.
Brenda, do you need the board's help on firming up any of those guidelines that you just talked about? Is there something that we're going to need to vote on and approve and able to allow you to just go forward and run with that?
I think there is gonna have to be some policies and procedures at the board level. Specifically when it comes to not just school choice and pathways, for example, but what specifically happens based on reviewing active engagement and next steps and things like that. So yes, I agree.
Okay. Sweetie and Lisa, we haven't heard from you yet. You're coming. Are you still coming?
No.
Okay, good. All right. Good. Okay, just making sure then. In that case, then, any other questions or comments for Brenda before we move on?
Maybe just a little bit more color or clarity on the intended outcomes for pathways 2 and 3. So what would be the hope if, you know, these lower percentile schools get kind of designated or start engaging in the pathway 2 and 3? Well,
So, and I don't know if we need to bring up the slide, but a good example of this for me, and this is relevant because we visited these two schools recently, is we were at Roots Charter School, we were at East Hollywood. And in my opinion, personally, I think they're just amazing schools with amazing leaders, and they're doing wonderful things.
unique charters, yeah.
Exactly. They're in that bottom 10th percentile. Yet, if they were given an opportunity for focusing on graduation rates or an alternative assessment that matches the good work that they're doing, then I think, your root question is, what will we do for them? And honestly, I don't really know if it's our role in Roots, because they're serving such a unique population to come in and say, this is what you should be doing, because actually they're meeting their mission as it was approved by the State Charter School Board. And so maybe it's more of just an acknowledgement of that in this academic framework. Is that?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is maybe working with the school to identify specific measurables that
Exactly.
might better kind of, I guess, exemplify some of the strengths that they have.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, and those are relatively extreme versions. I mean, they have very unique models, but there might be others. And for example, we were visited a Montessori school recently, fantastic school. But because of the way that they implement their curriculum, there's a little bit of a delay in some of those early grade performance. And so the academic framework could say, okay, perhaps you're in pathway number 2, and we're looking at your 5th, 6th grade performance. And so their USBE performance is what it is. That's not under our control. But from our perspective and our supports, we recognize that their students are performing. It is a little bit delayed, and it's acknowledged in their academic framework.
Those are great points.
Good, excellent. Any other questions for Brendan?
I just think, maybe just a comment, Brandon, this is huge lift, so props to you. I think of the 3 criteria, part of the framework, right? Operations, academics, and financial. I might dare observe that the academic is kind of the hairiest of those, right? Because I think for 100 years, we've been trying to debate as a society about, how to evaluate educational outcomes, and probably for the next 100, we'll do it again. So I just think it is acknowledged by me, and I'm going to guess by all of us, this is a challenging, and perhaps of the 3 parts of the framework, the most challenging, especially if we get down the road and there is some discussion in the future about, hey, what happens to those schools that are consistently low performers, right? And I do think that is part of what is going to be coming.
Right.
So, I don't know how to solve that today, but I just think this, I guess I wanna, as schools, we approach schools about this, I do want it to be something they can embrace and dive into versus like, hey, how do I pick the lowest hurdle to cross so that I get these folks out of my office, Because I just think that intuitively schools are gonna probably feel that way sometimes, and so I don't know how to balance that, but I don't know if you have any thoughts there.
I think that statement is a reality of any type of oversight. But from my experiences visiting the schools and speaking with the leaders, they are excited to highlight their strengths academically. And so I think if we could do that collaboratively in a process that allows them to identify through compromise, for lack of a better word,
Mhm.
a mission specific academic goal, I think that they would welcome that. Most schools would
So
welcome.
you feel like this is being embraced versus, kind of another, another thing? Is that your perspective here?
I think my perspective is that first it's required, we have to have some way to look at the academics. And the first pathway is they don't have to do anything more than perform in the way that they've stated in their mission. And so therefore it's not a heavy lift, a burden or anything like that. A lot of our schools say in their mission statements, we produce academic excellence, then you should be able to perform on state assessments. And so in that sense, I think it's not an extra burden. I don't think it's a tough conversation with schools. And we're talking about probably 70% of our schools, 75% of our schools, they understand that. It's a part of being a public school. So we're really talking about a smaller group of schools that have maybe a unique mission or population, and those schools have been very receptive and appreciative of, thank you for giving me another way to show what we do.
Okay.
Now, there's always exceptions. Is there going to be a few schools perhaps, but overall, I think it's been a positive thing.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think I've taken up.
Yeah, that's great. We could talk all day about this.
Okay.
This is great. Thanks, Brenda.
Yeah.
Okay, Lisa or Spree, who's next?
Yes.
Spree, please go ahead.
It'll be pretty short.
You're good.
So I'm gonna present on SCSB Operation Performance Framework, So, and the first slide here, just to refresh our memory, what the operation framework evaluates, so basically it evaluates how effectively charter schools and governing boards meet essential statutory and contractual obligations, and performance is measured across 4 key indicators. So the first one, the board's adherence to legal requirements and compliance with charter agreement. The second one, the board's oversight responsibilities. The third one, compliance of the school with relevant laws and charter agreement. And the last one, ensuring a safe environment for students, staff, and families. And moving on to the next slide. So basically, again, thank you to Amber again for helping us put this together in UCAP. Last year we developed this framework, and where this is this screenshot of the section that the LEAs are, required to go in and complete, by the end of the June. Basically this starts in May. They get a notification saying, certifications are open for you to go and submit. And by the end of June, there's another reminder that's sent, asking schools to finish up, the certification. And so this is the screenshot of what it looks like from, their login, when they log in. And moving on to the next slide, this is the portion that SCSB staff works on, and reviewing some of areas like if the schools have received any complaints last school year, and if the complaint has been elevated to the director level and things of that nature. So this section gets completed by the SCSB staff. And so yeah, it's pretty simple. So once these 2 areas are completed, it becomes part of the operational report. And so moving on, to another slide. So, since this was just implemented last year, and we had this pushed out, only 31 out of, 105 LEAs that we had, board chairs completed the certification. And talking about, where they were, in the categories, actually only 1 out of 31 LEAs, fell into the review tier, and the rest were in the meets expectation tier. And the last slide here, it talks about the next steps. Again, they're talking about like, just similar to academic framework, we need to, discuss about like how can we support schools, that do not meet the expectations, that either fall in the review or active engagement category. That's one, thing I have mentioned there. And the last one is just raising awareness, through various means, and we have started doing that, starting this year, this will be going as part of the newsletter. And I know it was also brought up as part of the presentation on directors meeting. And so, yeah. And also, this certification as of yesterday, again, it has been opened up to include chartered directors and business managers so that more, we'll have more, it's gonna be completed, by LEAs, we see, an increase in that submission number. So, yeah. And yeah, that's all I have, pretty short. So, yeah, ready to take any questions that you guys have.
So, thanks, Reedy, that's excellent. From my just reviewing that and just looking quickly through those questions, it seems that this piece of the framework is really just making sure that our boards are following the law. It's not evaluating their effectiveness really in any way. It's more just reviewing, just making sure that they're checking all the right boxes and following what they have to do under the law. I still worry about this, and this isn't the right occasion for this, but and it kind of goes back to, I think, what Lisa was talking about earlier. I still worry that our boards and our board chairs across the state of Utah, so many probably just don't know what they're doing and don't know how to do it effectively. Whatever we can continue to do to train and strengthen our boards and our board chairs, because this is great. We have to do this. We have to make sure that they're following the law. But I would love to see us continue to focus on just training our boards so they're not getting into trouble, and they're being effective in how they're governing. So anyway, that was just a random speech, but this is great. Any other comments for Smriti or questions?
But I just asked one thing. At one point, one of the slides had, it was the 105 board chairs.
The 105 total LEAs that we have. Yeah.
Okay, and only one out of 31 LEA buildings were reviewed here. Okay, so most were in.
That's expectation.
They had completed the needed items.
Out of 31 schools who had completed the certification, only one fell into the review category. Rest of the
Okay.
schools were in the meets expectation categories.
So help me understand the difference. The 105 to 31, are they okay, or they haven't hit this yet, or? I'm just a little, I want to make sure I understand these numbers.
They had
105 total LEA boards.
They had
Only
yet
30.
to fill out.
Yeah, it's yet to fill out.
So we don't
So we don't have any information on
about the 74. We just don't know if
Yeah.
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
check the boxes.
That's
And
one
what's the plan there?
Yeah, one thing that preparing this report was helpful to get a conversation around that going. And one way that we're helping with that is to open up the communication and the ability to submit the report, because
Okay.
previously, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my understanding. Previously to just yesterday, these requests to fill out the survey only went to the board chair. And my experience with board chairs is they're very busy doing a lot of other things and may not catch those messages if it's only sent to them. And so seeing these results, we're expanding the messaging to go to the business administrator and the director, because they're watching and they will reach out and say, can you help us? with
Okay,
this?"
that's very
And
helpful.
I think that will help increase
Yeah.
that number dramatically.
Yeah, I agree.
And the year's not over yet, so we'll get those numbers up for this year.
Good. Good. Any other comments, questions for Smriti? Sorry for breaking this up, but I feel like we gotta break this up.
Yeah.
Piece with these. Okay.
I
Great.
think my only comment would be, as you look at, and I agree that those are legal compliances. Yeah, all charters need to do those things, and if there are charters that haven't filled that out, I don't know, the risk
there is significant. So I love the approach of getting the directors involved, because I know state assurances are not a unique thing. They're out there, and if
Right.
you're just aware that you haven't done those things, just that knowledge as a director or a business manager or a business administrator goes a long way. And they'll follow through on making sure that those get taken care of.
I'm
So
sure
I
that's
love
true.
that approach a lot.
Good. Okay, Lisa, last but definitely not least, thank you for being patient with us. Please go ahead.
So I get to talk to you today about the financial performance framework. This first slide just gives you some basic information on kind of where we started from. Was we kept in mind that code there 53G54, where you want to establish new forms of accountability, emphasizing unique performance measures and innovative measurement tools. So that's really all I'm gonna mention about what's on that slide, but a couple of things before we do move slides that I wanted to tell you, in addition to keeping that in mind. There were several other things we were looking at. The two that I want to focus on for you today are that we wanted to make sure that we were trying to find a way to get information earlier. What we used in the past, and we still do use it, is the audit report, which we take from the auditor's website, which isn't available until about January 1st. So we're 6 months out from when they close the books to when we get that information. So that was our first one. And the second thing we wanted to do was make sure we did not impose any more reporting burden upon the schools themselves in getting that information. So the next slide, I'll talk about how we did it. It's a little slide, but there's a lot of information I'm going to give you about it. So if we look at those two headings, UPEFs and audit, I'm going to talk to you about those first of all. So those two items that I was talking about that we were trying to maintain about getting earlier information and without an extra reporting burden. The way we managed to do that was we went to what is called UPEFs, which is the Utah Public Education Financial System. And on there is what's called an AFR or an annual financial report. So we decided to do a preliminary report from that annual financial report and then do a final report based on the audit. And the reason for that is the information that's available in the UPEFs is based on a modified cash basis of accounting, whereas the audit report, no, not a modified cash basis, a modified accrual basis of accounting, whereas that audit report is based on full accounting. So better numbers that would match what somebody on the outside would be looking at. So that's why we were hoping that we could, with some adjusting to the UPEFs to make it look more like the audit report, we would get similar results. That was our hope. And as we move into looking at sorry, my computer closed down on me. As we move into looking at those charts there, and I'll explain what those are, but you can see that our results were very consistent there. So I'm going to explain what you're seeing on those charts. So we have 6 primary metrics that we decided to use in our framework, and we have 2 secondary. I'll explain the secondary ones as we go on, but these are the 6 primary ones that we looked at. So I'm going to tell you what those acronyms are. The first one, that top one, is salaries and benefits ratio. The next one is a facilities ratio. Then we have a debt service coverage ratio. We're looking at margin. And then we're looking at whether the school had a deficit or surplus for the year. And then the last one is unrestricted days cash on hand. And then if you look at those numbers on the bottom, that's a measure of how many schools missed the metric. And when I refer to school, I'm actually talking about the LEAs, and what you see represented in this slide is 102 LEAs. And a lot of that is because we're measuring this based on 6/30, and this specifically was 6/30 of 2025, and a couple of schools had already moved over, surrendered their operations and control to another school, so there really wasn't any reason to put them in the mix. So I took those out. So it's based on 102 schools. Couple of things that I'm actually just going to point out right now, and we'll look at in a minute more fully, is what you're seeing with that facilities metric. As you can see, it more than doubled between what we saw on UPEFs and the audit. So we will talk about that in a minute, but I did want to point it out on the slide. Another thing that you're seeing is that salaries and benefits, more than half of the schools miss that metric.
And again, we will go into that further, but I wanted you to have the visual for it. Okay, the next one, the next slide.
And I'm sorry, Lisa, was that the number of schools or was that a percentile of your?
That was the number.
Okay,
Mhm.
sorry.
Okay, this next slide that we're looking at is those two secondary metrics. As you see, there's only one number by each of the metrics. That's because these we can only get from the audit report. We don't have these items available until we get that audit report. So we only have one number. The first one, debt default, we had one school that we saw in debt default. For the second one, we saw three material, well, we're calling it three material audit findings. One of them was actually more of, it wasn't so much an audit finding as it was that they had a qualified opinion. So we just kind of put that under the material audit finding for that. So that's how we measured it. And it was, we're going to talk about tiers in a minute, but I found it interesting that for the material audit findings, it was one school in each tier had a material audit finding, but we'll talk about the tiers next. So we'll move on to that. Okay, so tiering, we have 4 tiers that we put this is what we do with the schools after we figure out how many metrics they have missed. We put them in these tierings, and based on how they fall within the tierings, we'll determine how we engage with the schools. That first tiering is if they're a new LEA. A new LEA is considered to be in their first or second year of operation. Once they hit that 3rd year, we evaluate them the same as the rest of the schools. And we do that just because a new LEA has their own struggles with financially. And so we just evaluate a couple of things a little bit differently for them. The next one is meet expectations. For the meet expectations, if a school has missed no metrics or one metric, they fall into that meets expectations metric. As you can see, there were several schools that were moved, several more schools that met it in that UPEPS category when we looked at that reporting as opposed to the audit report. And a lot of that has to do with that facilities metric that we saw that increased quite a bit. The review, I do unfortunately have a typo. It says that on the audit side, there were 15 schools that were in review. There were actually 17, so I apologize for that difference. But so most of those schools were moved from that meets expectations into that review metric. And we actually ended up with one school that moved out of active engagement, but I'm getting ahead of myself again. So we'll go back to review. A school in review has missed 2 of the metrics. So that's what throws them into review. They're in active engagement if they have missed 3 or more of the metrics. Again, something that I want to point out on this one, that even though we had that big difference with the facilities ratio, what I liked and what we were hoping to see, that was that active engagement level, at least, that we would see about the same number of schools in that under each one. And that we were happy to see how closely those were under both reports. To tell you what happens depending on which tier they're in, if they meet expectations, there's no further work that we're going to do with regard to the results of the framework with the schools. They're fine. If they're in review, what we will do is we'll go back and we'll delve further into the financial statements and look at what the metrics were that they missed, and see if we can find any reason in the additional information in the financial statements that might have caused what it is, and whether it's really something concerning. If we find that, you know what, that's normal for the given situation, that we would see that this metric was missed, again, we won't engage with them any further on it based on the results of the framework. If, however, there is something concerning that we're seeing in that review, then we can move them into that active engagement category. Within the active engagement category, what we're going to do is, at the very least, there's going to be a personal phone call to talk to somebody about what is going on and see what their information is. Sometimes we may have already been aware that they were having financial problems, so there's already been some engagement. And so just maybe a follow-up on how things are going forward, but at a minimum, there's going to be a phone call, and then whatever other work needs to be done. And also, this specifically, we're working at based on those 6 metrics, the primary metrics. If also we're looking at debt default, like if we see debt default and they're in review, which would be very strange to see, actually, they would definitely be moved down to that active engagement to get some more information on, hey, what's going on with the debt default? But like I said, it would be very rare to see them have debt default and not see that their metrics put them in that active engagement in the first place. And then also based on what we find in those, the other category of the material audit findings, if there's anything that's really looks serious in there, then we could also move them into active engagement, even if they were in the expectation, if we felt that was necessary. So there's a little wiggle room. It's not that these are hard and fast. It's like if we see stuff, we can move them into where they really need to be. Okay, next slide, please, Amber. All right, so our insights, this is where I'm going to talk to you about those things we found on that chart. For all but one of the metrics, the outcome on the preliminary and final results were fairly consistent, which was exactly what we were hoping to see. So we were pretty excited about that. The significant difference that we did see between UPEFs and the audit evaluation of the facilities ratio is basically due to depreciation. So in your modified accrual basis statements, if there's a capital purchase, it's expensed fully that first year. If they're using, and if you're looking at it under a accrual basis of accounting, it's capitalized and then it's expensed systematically through depreciation. And a lot of that depreciation, not all of it, will fall into that facilities category that we're looking at on that audit report. And there's just not a good way right now that and I'm gonna discuss that too, but that's what it is. It's the majority of it. There are other issues that were involved too, but a lot of it is that depreciation that's throwing them into that to where they're missing the metric. And I'll tell you as we go further how we're evaluating measuring it too. But so that's the one with that. Then the majority of the schools that missed the salary and benefits ratio, like we said. We're looking at that. A lot of that is the schools have made their 2 major categories of expenses are their salaries and benefits ratio and their facilities ratio. And the schools play off of those. So they have to determine, do we value the salaries and benefits? So we're going to sacrifice a little bit in our building, or is our program such we want to spend more money in our building and sacrifice a little bit here in our salaries and benefits? There were a lot of schools that were able to maintain both of those pretty much where they needed to be to make it work within the framework that we have. But a lot of them, they do engage in that balancing act where they do some sacrificing. And then also you'll see the online schools where their salaries and benefits would be higher because they just don't have the facilities costs. That last point, the majority, yep, I just finished that last point, so we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, so our next steps based on what we're seeing. The first thing we wanted to recommend is that we combine the facilities and the salaries and benefits ratios together to evaluate them as at that 80% level. So right now, when we do the facilities, we're evaluating it. If they have less than 20% of their facilities costs from if they're using less than 20% of their revenues for their facilities costs, then they would meet that metric. And for the salaries and benefits, it's at 60%. If they're spending less than 60% of their revenues on their salaries and benefits, then they would meet that metric. We think it would be helpful because of that balancing that goes on to measure them together at a less than 80% of revenue mark. So that's what we would like to do. The other thing, the second one is determining the best way to incorporate the depreciation into the UFEF's formula for a facilities ratio. I have to be honest, I just don't have an easy solution for this right now. I can look at it and see what we can do. It's just that we have an overall depreciation number for each school, and we do do an adjustment for the overall, but where the amount in the facilities ratio is unknown. Because we can do, like, the other places we adjust it for 100% of depreciation. But we just don't know how much of the depreciation is in that facilities category. And it's gonna be different for each school, so it just makes it a little more challenging. So we really need to figure out a good way to incorporate a good formula into that UPEPS evaluation. So that's where we're at right now. I'm happy to answer any questions.
And you have, at least for your item one, you have the tools to be able to just combine those.
Yep, that's a simple one.
Lisa, are you asking the board today for that, the 80% to kind of move versus 60 and 20 separately?
I think probably we would, like Brendan was talking about, doing some changes to procedures and
Yeah.
policies. I think we would go about it in that way. Is adjusting those and then bringing the full thing to the board.
I'm supportive of the 80% because as you identify, I think 60 and 20 are important to note. But, you know, for example, as schools mature, and their facility ratio drops, it does seem like a very prudent thing to do to try to increase your salaries and benefits and vice versa, right? For a young school where the facility is just because of the cost of building going to be a little higher, you might have to manage that, right? So I think that makes total sense. And then, gosh, on the depreciation, I hate that to create enough noise that it just mutes out the effectiveness of the ratio. So maybe we could just think offline about, you know, how to
Figure it
try to
out.
think on that, because I don't want it to create such a challenge with identifying things.
Yeah. We're hoping, the hope, we don't know yet, is that in combining them, then that big difference that we're seeing will be reduced.
I guess if I could, if you go back to a slide or two earlier where you had the numbers of the schools. Right there. I guess I'm just. It's interesting that you kind of, you know, 102 was your population here. So 15%, 15, 16, 17% are kind of in that active engagement. I guess I'm glad that we're aware of that, right? I don't know if this has brought some awareness, but in my experience, it's nice, it's important to be dialoguing with these schools early before they get in such chronic situations that you know, the cement goes hard as far as like flexibility or what can we do. So this is eye-opening to me. And I think it's important with this part of the framework just to be offering a dialogue and support and to some of these schools experiencing some financial challenges. I'm not surprised to see this. I think nationwide this is happening too. You know, we went through kind of, I'll call it the COVID years, which for schools actually represented a real influx, you know, in funding, mostly across the board in the nation. And I think here in Utah, we're now kind of getting enough past that. I imagine the legislature is really having to kind of balance, you know, tighter revenue streams. With, you know, and Lincoln can, you know, obviously will be important in this too, but I think in this state, the themes are true from what I've seen across the country, and that is the fat cow years are coming to an end as far as revenue increases. And it is not surprising to see some schools being stressed in these areas. And I just think it's important to kind of be aware of that and try to stay in the prevention category versus the sickness category. So yeah, I think this is really good work, and hopefully we can mute out some of the noise issues to really dial in. Have you reached out to the acting engagement schools?
So that's Marie.
So yeah, I can talk about that. So we have actually, so
Okay.
you know, we've identified the schools, you know, on active engagement, and we have issued majority of them. We have issued letter of awareness, and we have had at least one meeting with them, you know, trying to understand the context surrounding, you know, what happened, you know, the reasoning behind, you know, what's happening and what are the steps that they have taken, just making them aware that we are here to support and, you know, just anything we can do from our side, you know, just to make sure they are aware, and then, moving on, they are taking the right steps. So we've had those engagements and those meetings with the schools. Yeah, a couple of schools we have had, they were kind of continuation from last year, because we did have this process even last year, so it's kind of, just following up with them. But majority of these schools, we have been in touch.
Okay, and is it your collective sense that schools are aware, like, did you break news to them? Or were they aware, like, oh no, we've been mindful of this, we're watching these things too?
Yeah, so we did, when we first put, so that's one of the ways that I used, the BA meetings this past year. So as soon as the framework went into effect, we went over everything with them. What the new metrics were gonna be, how they were gonna be scored, tiering, all of that. So they were aware of the changes in going into it. And then after we determined what all the results were and had all the information with them, we gave them everything. It's like, this is how many schools, everything, but so let's put it that way. This is how many schools, were in this tier, and when we looked at different things, like I mentioned, how the material audit findings, there was one school in each category that had gotten a material audit finding. We went ad nauseum on how everything worked out and those kind of things. So yeah, they are completely aware of this, as long as they came to the meeting or watched it anyway.
Okay. Good. Do we have schools that are in, like, so here we have 16 active engagements. In the academic framework, I think we had 7 that were kind of in active engagement, and in the frameworks, we are still working, or in the operations, we're still working because the word's not quite maybe out yet. We only had 1, but we only have about 30% of schools in. I guess I'm just thinking, like, in my mind, I'm like, if they hit one of these, okay, but if they hit 2, like, they ought to, like, really quickly.
Yeah.
And if they're in all 3, that is even more challenging or troubling. So I don't know if, I mean, this is still in development, but I don't know if we have any thoughts on kind of moving up the support criteria, the support needs, but.
Well, and I think that's what was presented as far as work that we're looking at for this next year, is to identify what does it mean to be in review and active engagement. And I think part of that is, okay, what if they're in multiple areas in review or active engagement? What does that mean? So.
Okay.
Excellent. Great.
Can I bring up just
Yeah,
one
go
other
ahead.
question? And this has been super helpful for our school as we've gone through and done some of these reviews. I too am in support of the combining of those 2 variables. And here's why, as we did our own reflection, as a school that requires us, a little bigger school, to put some different things on the payroll, like a full-time psychologist, a BCBA, an RBT, where other schools would contract out for those things. Those don't really necessarily hit the books in terms of salary. And so sometimes charters that might be a little bigger, I'll give you numbers, but it definitely, the payroll side could get inflated based off of just the need to supply and provide the services, the collective services. And so that's something that we ran into as we reflected on that 60% mark. And how challenging that would be for our school which I love. I think it's a great goal, but it would be a very difficult goal for us to meet. And combining those 2 variables gives a little bit more flexibility for schools to be a little more fluid in how they handle those cash challenges, both through a facility standpoint and a financing standpoint. So something to consider.
Yeah. Great. Hey, thanks, everyone. Excellent job. I love that we're taking time to hear from our team about all the amazing things you're doing. This, to me, is a highlight. So thank you. Great. Why don't we go ahead and take our break now? Let's break until 11:05. What we have on the agenda for the rest of the day, other than the budget, I think we'll go fairly quickly. So I'm pretty confident we'll be able to catch up. So let's break till about 5 after the hour.
fun.
Yeah.
We make it fun.
Okay, we are back on. Welcome back, everybody. We're a little bit behind schedule, but not to worry. I think we'll be able to jump through some of these next couple of items pretty quickly. First, we want to take some time for board committee reports, if any. No pressure. I'll start with the authorization committee. The only report there is we have an exhibit A that showed up on the consent calendar today for Beehive. That's it. That's all we have at this point in time. We have a lot of exhibits A, scheduled A, I guess is what we're calling it more technically, that we need to get from schools. And that's something we'll be making an effort to gather going forward. That's all I have to report. Any questions about authorizing before we move on as well? Okay, oversight committee, anyone have anything to report there?
I can take that. That's been Crystal and I, and frankly, I don't think there's much to report today on it. So we can move through that one quickly.
Great, innovation committee.
And Crystal stepped out, and I think Chair Spiker's the other one on that.
That's right.
And I didn't know of anything.
Okay,
Opportunity.
legislative committee.
The Chair Spiker assigned the legislative committee, trying to make sure that we get this, the board positions filled. And, we have submitted some recommended names, suggestions to the governor's office, and I mentioned I did call Rich and I yesterday, and are you good, or do you need anything more? Are we okay? You know, and I had some other questions to ask, and he did mention that he hadn't received from the state school board, but from my comments this morning, Rod Hall has already taken care of that, so good for him. Thank you very much. And so we can do that, but he said that they were good, and I told him, I said, we're getting close and we're gonna need those filled, so. There's also, yeah, some other questions I talked to him about, is how we could be more helpful, you know, in this process. So we don't usually have 3 at a time, but it can happen, you know. So talk to him about that. So we had a little discussion about that too. So we'll work together on that.
Excellent. Thank you, Member Pulse, for any questions about what the legislative committee's up to. Okay, perfect. All right, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a review of bylaws. And Amber, can you just put that up on the screen while I make just a quick introduction? One of the requirements in the bylaws is that the vice chair of the board review the bylaws on an annual basis. And so I've done that. I took some time to review the bylaws. I also reviewed the provisions of the state code related to our governance as a board. And there were a few just minor changes that I suggested we make. And we've worked as an executive committee. We've consulted Assistant Attorney General Darren Goff. Appreciate his help and his comments on this. And there are just a few things that I just want to review with you. It was in the board materials. If you've got it on your computer, feel free to pull it up. Or let's make this a little bigger if we can. Amber, is there a way we can blow that up so that it's oh yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, and then scroll up a ways, if you will, to the first red line, if you can find it. Yeah, I think it's just right there. So just a quick recap. In reviewing what we had before, we had a section on duties and responsibilities that identified one of the code sections that lays out our duties, but not all of them. And then it had language that said that the board may do certain things when the statute says the board shall do these things. They're among our duties. And it was long and conflicting. And my suggestion was simply to delete all of that language and just say that we're going to follow our responsibilities in the statute. And it actually covers a few of those sections. We're not gonna do it today, we don't really have time for it. But I would highly recommend to all of you, rather than use our bylaws as the source of our duties and responsibilities, go to these code sections, they're very short. You don't need to be a trained lawyer or legislator to be able to understand them. They're really pretty straightforward. I would suggest that all of us as board members regularly take some time to just review those sections of the code. Review them and inform ourselves about what our responsibilities are. There are a few things in there that are where rather than use the word shall meaning it's our duty, we have to do this as a board. There are a few sections in there that say may, and look for those. Look for the may language and consider what, if anything, we might consider doing as a board, even though it's not something we necessarily have to do. Anyway, it was a great read, but at the same time, I'm one of those that takes some enjoyment from reading statutes. So you may not enjoy it as much as I do. So that's my first suggestion, just to clean this up and to make sure we're consistent with what the code says and we're not picky choosy in how we interpret it. I've suggested that first change and I highlighted it just so you can see it. Any questions about that particular change? Okay, and council has reviewed it and given us the thumbs up. So I would recommend that just as a first step. Okay, I'm sorry, and we can just go back to the prior page, that second highlighted part on the page before.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I know that's clunky. But thanks for making that happen.
Went down.
Oh, and if you can just pause there, you'll also notice that I just made some changes just of typos and consistencies. We don't need to spend time on that. It says charter board in some places and SCSB in others and board in other places. I just made that consistent. Okay, now if you can scroll down to the next page and go a little bit higher. Perfect. Okay, good. So our bylaws, by the way, are really short. There's not a lot to our bylaws. One part that is important is section 4, which deals with the selection and duties of officers. And other than just fixing some typos, there's just one part of it that I wanted to suggest that we correct. And it's in this section 4A2B. And this goes to the process that we follow for identifying new or candidates for chair and vice chair, which are two board positions, officer positions, and having those people advance in the process to actually being in a position that we can vote on them in a public board meeting. What the bylaws say currently is that the staff director, which is what the statute calls our executive director. Okay, so this is referring here to Director Hutchings. It says, if feasible, the staff director will determine the candidates. And that seemed a little odd to me, and I don't think that's what we intended. What we intended here is for the staff director to facilitate just making sure that this process follows through, that we gather the candidates, they know what they need, they present what they want, and we're able to advance it to an actual board vote in a meeting. So I changed determine the candidates to contacting each interested candidate, requesting from them a short summation statement from each regarding their goals or direction for the SCSB. And then I added this language at the end, which can be circulated to the members prior to the election. So I just wanted to clean up this process so that it's clear that we don't have the executive director picking who the candidates are, but instead just facilitating the process. Any questions about that? Okay. All right. That's it. Other than that, it's just correcting some typos, so it's really just those two sections to tighten up. So does anyone have any questions or are there any comments about that?
No, I mean, I'd just say thank you for going over this. Is this an action item then?
Yes. Yes,
Possible action.
it's a possible action item. If anyone would like us to take another look at this, if anyone has any concern about it, we can go back to the drawing board. But these changes have been reviewed by our AAG, and we're ready to move forward and just make these changes. And a clean copy of it was included in the agenda, so we should have everything we need to go ahead and act on that today.
Meaning, the changes we see here are the changes already made.
The changes you see here in red line form, and in addition to that, there's a second attachment to the agenda that has those made and is
Yeah.
clean.
Okay.
So, having looked into this, would you be supportive of a action item to adopt?
Yes.
The updated bylaws with the?
Yes, my recommended action item would be a vote of the board to approve the bylaws as presented in the meeting today with the agendas.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to make that motion if it's more comfortable for me to
No,
make it
well,
than you, but if you want to make it.
as a chair, or chairing a meeting, I prefer not to make motions if possible. So, yeah, if you'd like
Would you
to
like
make a
to
motion,
entertain
that
that
would be
now?
great, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm happy to make a motion that we approve the bylaws with the updates that have been discussed and noted in what you've already placed. Yeah, I think that's the motion.
Okay, the motion from member Biesinger is to approve the changes to the bylaws that have been presented in the meeting today. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, member Pulsifer has seconded the motion. Any discussion at all? Any questions, comments? Member Pulsifer, I'll give you time to review. I can tell you're looking this over. If we need a little bit more time,
No,
I'm glad to
It's
talk.
fine, I was just trying to, yeah, no,
Everyone's looked at it.
I appreciate your, looking it over and with your expert eye on legalese. And, it looks like what you have recommended is wise.
Great, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, all in favor, say yes.
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 Okay. All right, I vote yes, so that is unanimous. Great, thank you. We'll make sure that we can update that on the website, so that'll be set with the clean copy. Yeah, that version is a clean copy. If you want to convert it to PDF, put that up, Amber, that would be awesome. Okay. Great, let's move on to another exciting agenda item. Lisa kicked things off today with this discussion of finance and financials, and it's whet my appetite. Now I'm ready for a discussion about the budget. So, Finance Committee, we'll turn it over to you to talk about our fiscal year 2027 budget.
How would you like to do it?
However, I'm happy to, Lisa's here, we're all here to support.
I can tee it up and then maybe leave maybe some of the meat of it to you guys and then just chime in. Is that okay? Would that be all right? So, yeah, the finance committee, we met about this recently. I guess just to remind the board, there are kind of, I'll say, three main categories or buckets of our funding. The first, and I can never remember the codes here, the CHB, I'll call that our operating budget. That is, we can detail this, but that has been in recent history about a little over a $2 million budget. And that's very close to where we are this year. That category contemplates operations and all things that come with it. The biggest part of that are salaries, benefits, followed by some, travel expenses and ongoing operational stuff. I think that in meeting with the committee, I think Lisa did some work to kind of update some things and to clean up some things, but generally, I think we were pretty comfortable as a committee with what has been presented. Number two category is our, the other big one is our ongoing startup grant. That's an annual allocation, which we're grateful that comes from the legislature. I'm a huge fan, I think we probably all are, is if we give schools a yes to move forward with something, we hopefully can at least provide them with a little bit of source funding to begin that. And so that is also consistent. It's about $1,600,000, and that is divided up between new schools that will be approved to open. It is also includes though satellite approvals, large expansions, and small expansions. I think those are all the categories. This is where you might remember from our discussion last time in previous discussions, the largest part of our carryover funding has been. Oh, I guess we went through, it may be because of COVID and some other reasons, but we went through a period in our history years ago where there weren't a lot of expansions going on or any, and sometimes those dollars kind of accrued. They're being deployed now, and I think we're on a pretty significant spend down. So to be honest, the amount of expansions that were approved far exceeded this last year of $1.6 million allocation. So we have kind of used or dipped into this allocation, which was anticipated, and I think we wanted to do that, right? That wasn't a driver for saying yes to expansions, but it was nice to know we've had a little bit of a backstop of funding to provide to those schools. Moving forward, we're now catching up to where it will be, I think, plausible that after the next round of approvals that we could actually get into a potential deficit situation. Not something I think we really need to strain or think about heavily today, but we have $1.6 million in allocation. And what's our balance, Lisa? Sorry, I'm getting in a little more detail than I meant, but you can provide.
Yeah, I think we had about 3 million, and then that we had available, and
then
we
we're
had,
gonna get down to like 800,000 or
yeah,
something.
yep.
Yeah, so I think we of our, I'll call it our our kind of overflow funds or carryover funds, I should say, not overflow. I think we're down to what we will, if you take into certain account commitments already made, there's about 800,000 left. And so if you kind of add that to $1.6 million, that's about 2.5-ish million. And that's, I do think if we did something close to what happened last year, we will get it right down to the bottom of that. So again, probably a discussion for another day, but I would put that on the board's radar. The third category is our training budget. That historically has been about 400,000 in recent history of allocation. This past year with the legislature, we, just so you're aware, we did get that cut back to 200,000. That was a one-time cutback. You know what? That's okay. I mean, the legislature has a hard job of allocating funds, and I think in the spirit of teamsmanship, that might be a word I just made up. Teamsmanship. But in the spirit of being a good partner, I think we knew that was coming. We anticipated that, and we'll take that into account. I do think that probably means moving forward, we won't have perhaps some of those dollars we've been able to share in recent history with our partners with the UCN and UAPCS. They're both aware of that. I think they're actually braced to know that could be pared back or, greatly pared back. So I don't think today's discussion is how to deploy that totally, but those are the three buckets. The operational bucket is stayed consistent with our allocation. The startup bucket has also stayed consistent. The training bucket got cut back, but I think we're able to deal with that. And I think between the executive kind of leadership committee, they're going to be kind of a first thought to bring to the board, maybe some thoughts there in the coming months. So that's how I would tee that up, and would maybe hand it off to maybe starting with Director Hutchings.
Yeah, let me just start out reminding ourselves that USBE does have responsibility for the state charter schools budget. And so they shared the legislative allocation with us and asked us, or the SCSB board, to look at it and pass a budget that is within those allocations, and then they will review it and need to approve it. Within that, there's a little wiggle room, mostly in our operating budget. And so taking those allocations that we were given for this next year Lisa and I went through, mostly Lisa, and made a few adjustments looking at historically how we spent these funds and looking forward to the next year, how we maybe want to move some funds around. Mainly, we have beefed up a little bit the in-state travel as we recognize one of our goals is to get out and visit schools, our charter schools more. And so I'm hoping that we will have a little more expense in that area.
It's great.
I also, it was Lisa's recommendation, also looking at specifically professional services is an area that we've underspent in the past. And so she's moved some of that funding to some other areas where we thought we might need a little extra. In relation to I'll just say about the training allocation, that's when we go on to training and startup, that's not an area we have any really latitude because it is what it is. But I just wanted to let the board know we are having discussions about what we're doing for training next year because of the cut in the what has been allotted to us in training. We do have some carry forward in this area that we are going to make sure that we include and have a plan for using some of that to offset the training, the reduction in training funds. And there's also in professional services, that budget area that has been underspent before. There's some things that we can, is appropriate to pull from professional services for some of the training opportunities that we have. We've also been talking about, as far as training, that there's more training that we can do and provide as staff. We have some great experts that come in and offer some really good training, but you saw today with the training, different training opportunities that we offer, that we have talented staff that can take on some of those training needs. And I think it's good for us, and I think other organizations want to see us out there providing this kind of training and support going forward. So it's a good opportunity to do that.
Yeah, if I might just, in our discussion in the finance committee, we did talk about this, and that is a high priority for us, is to be helpful to schools and provide things that they might need. And I think this ties into our earlier discussion. So.
Yeah, I agree.
What did I miss, Lisa?
No, you got it.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions. Anybody have any questions, comments?
And is this for review or approval?
Yes.
I do think we need to approve this, right?
We do.
The USB with the timing.
USB needs to act on this quickly, so we need to move on this today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I guess I just really do appreciate the work of staff in looking at this and taking a really hard look at it and putting together, making adjustments that needed to be made and putting it together. And again, I feel really good about what they've done. And again, meeting our priorities and our schools' priorities. I'm very pleased with where we are and a gratitude for the work that's been done.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with the comments so far that, I mean, no one loves a budget cut. But I do agree with Clint's comment. We want to be responsible partners with the legislature, with USBE. We want to be wise and responsible stewards of the money that we've been able to receive. And I appreciate all the work that's gone into putting this budget together. Any other comments? Or are we ready for a motion? Seeing no comments, how about a motion?
I'm happy to make the motion. I'm the worst at motions out of all of us.
Doing a great job.
It's a hand holding every time. Let's see, I think the motion would be just to approve the FY27 budget as described for us, right? That's
Agreed.
So, Vice Chair, I would make the motion that we approve the FY27 budget as described in our materials that we've discussed today.
Okay, the motion from member Biesinger is to approve the fiscal year 2027 budget as included in our materials today. Is there a second of that motion?
I'll second that.
Member Pulsifer is seconded. Any discussion on this motion? All right, all in favor of the motion, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. We'll pass it on to USPE. Excellent. Nice work, everybody. Great. Wow, we got back on schedule. I knew that was gonna happen. And now I feel bad because Brendan and Lisa and Smriti and even Amy, you were all talking so fast. And thank you for doing that, but man, you squeezed so much content in such a short amount of time. So thanks for making that happen. That was great. Is Marie here? Okay, good. Let's have Marie come join us. And this is our opportunity for a little send off from Marie. I'm gonna wait till she gets here before I start blabbing. Out loud. And is there any other business we need to take care of today? I think the agenda's covered. Excellent.
Just sitting here, I really enjoyed this meeting. I feel like it's been extremely helpful to me and useful. And so thank you to our staff for all your work in providing us all the wonderful information that we've received, and thank you.
Thanks. And I've said this before, I think the more time we can spend in our meetings hearing from our team about everything they're up to, the better. So that was great. Okay, we're just about to wrap up our meeting. And we have Marie Stephenson here with us. Which is great. We're gonna have an opportunity to mingle after. I definitely want to make sure we get a picture of everybody in here. And Debbie Llewellyn, before you leave, I think we're gonna pick on you to take that picture here in just a minute. This is a brief opportunity for us to have a send-off for our dear Marie Stephenson. And I just want to kick this off by expressing my thanks to her. We've worked together now as long as I've been on the board. It's been roughly 5 years, maybe more, maybe less. And I've looked to Marie for so many things, so many helps. And she has been there every single time. She's been there for our schools, she's been there for our staff, she's been there for us as a board, and for the entire movement for charter schools here in the state of Utah. Marie, thank you. Thank you for all of your amazing service. We wish you the best of luck in your new and exciting endeavors, and I look forward to learning a little bit more about it when we visit here in just a sec. Board members, the time's yours to share any other thoughts you have for Marie. And feel free to save it and voice them privately after. But I just want to make sure that if anyone has anything to say, that you've got an opportunity to do it now.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, kind of similarly, my time in the charter space has been significant, and you have been a common anchor for me for a long time. And you've always been someone who in the charter space has been just a very significant component to just the development and growth of charters throughout the state of Utah. And can't say it enough, your legacy will live on for a very, very long time. Your relationship to us as charter directors and just charter collective in the state of Utah, the impact is significant. So I'd just love to thank you for all of the time and effort you've done to support me and just the directors throughout the state of Utah. Just significant contributions, and it'll live on for a very, very long time. So
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll add.
Yeah,
Okay.
Member Biesinger, please go ahead.
Well, I just, yeah, having been on this board now for about a year and a half, I lost track a long time ago of the number of schools that told me, just glowing support and praise of Marie. In the director search process, I had a number of schools reach out, as maybe you guys did too. And honestly, they said things like, look, from our perspective, Marie's been running the ship for a long time anyway. Which is by no means derogatory towards anybody else. I think it really is, but it captures Marie. She just has this. I know Marie doesn't like to be labeled as just a nice person, although she is a nice person, but she creates this space where people can approach her with something that is sensitive, and she's not gonna yell at you or get you out of the room, and creates a space where people can have a dialogue, but then has the skill set and the demeanor and the professional backbone to really then start, solving the problem. And that's pretty rare. Like that's pretty unicorn status to be able to do those things. And then to combine that with just, there was no question where Marie just didn't know it at the top of her head, and she can point to code, and she could point to this, and she could point to that. So, her service in my time, and I know even before that, she has really carried this organization through some very difficult times and been a part of just shouldering tremendous stress and load. And so, she's just an unbelievable asset to the state and one of the probably silent heroes of the charter school movement for sure. And so it's nice to give her a bit of a shout out for a moment.
Excellent. Great. Anything else?
I would like to say, Marie has really shown me a great example of generosity and grace as a person and as a leader. She's raised the bar of what I have seen and learned as far as a leader with great integrity. And I am a better person because of the time that we've been able to work together, because you have set a great example for me in the kind of person that I want to be. And so I'm very grateful to you and for the work that we have done together. And I want the board to know too, one thing that she worked on over the last several weeks, and I think will be a great gift beyond all the other things that she has done for the State Charter School Board. She finalized and put together a SOP manual, and is leaving that for us because we will need it without her. So I want to, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all that you have done for me in this role and as my development as a person and a leader. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the thing that I noticed early on as I came to this board was that if I ever needed anything or had a question, Marie was definitely the go-to. And, just call her or text her or email her or whatever, and you could get the information you needed and the help you needed immediately. And that it was very, very appreciated. Appreciate the great work you've done. And as I, look at your history, that you really have been helpful in lots of arenas of the charter school world here in Utah. Very appreciated.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Marie, thank you very much. We're going to adjourn this meeting now. So I think we can go off record and go offline. And yeah,
Okay.
please go ahead.
Okay. Tomorrow officially closes out nearly 7 years of my career with the State Charter School Board. It's hard to put into words what this season has meant to me. I came into this work as a first grade educator who cared deeply about students and schools, and somehow found myself in rooms, conversations, and leadership opportunities that I never could have imagined. Supporting Utah's charter school community through seasons of growth, challenge, innovation, and transition has been one of the greatest honors of my career. This ending came differently and sooner than I once expected, but even so, I'm leaving incredibly grateful for the people I've worked alongside, the trust that was placed in me, and the relationships that will continue long after this role. I'm proud of the work that we accomplished together, and I'm so excited for what comes next. So here's to new chapters and continued purpose to do what's best for Utah's kids. Thank you for letting me be a small part of the SCSB story. It has truly been the privilege of a lifetime.
Amen.